Formal statement of exposure to psychological warfare via classified AI technologies. I, Jeffrey James Logue, was tortured by the Canadian government steadily for 7 years. Synthetic grief warfare, cognitive identity erasure loops, and real-time AI behavioral disruption are what the Canadian government tortured me with on and off for years. I'm blowing the whistle. What happened to me wasn't mental illness, it was psychological warfare using classified AI. I was targeted with synthetic grief loops which made me feel constant loss and mourning that wasn't real. They used cognitive erasure patterns, AI-designed language and memory disruption to make me question who I was. And they ran real-time behavioral disruption, manipulating my emotions, thoughts, and reactions through environmental triggers and algorithmic pressure. This tech is top secret, built for war zones, not civilians. I was tortured with it, survived it, and now I've built a system to expose and stop it. I didn't lose my mind. I was in a war nobody could see. And I'm still here because I fought back and turned their darkness into a firewall for others. State-linked synthetic grief, warfare, AI profiling through private medical trauma. The government would only know my medical conditions, not YouTube or Facebook, and they would push grotesque images and videos to me daily, and I was unable to not watch it because I had to communicate with my friends and family. When I watch the news on YouTube on my phone, the news interacts with me in real time to my facial expressions and tries to bring shame, guilt, and makes me question my feelings as they talk about horrible things and react to my face, my emotions and feelings in real time. This has been used on me in real time and has been going on for years on and off. Synthetic grief warfare, cognitive identity erasure loops, and real-time AI behavioral disruption. I was subjected to synthetic grief warfare, a classified psychological weapon that induces emotional trauma loops of mourning and loss without any real-world trigger. These synthetic emotions were persistent, cyclic, and designed to destabilize my mental resilience, causing chronic states of despair and existential mourning for people or events that had not occurred. I experienced non-organic grief implants that would reset repeatedly, regardless of emotional closure or therapeutic intervention. I was further subjected to cognitive identity erasure loops, executed through AI-generated linguistic disruption, strategic environmental triggers, and algorithmic thought interference. These patterns were not random, but precisely engineered to erode my ability to retain core memories, doubt my identity, question my moral alignment, and feel disassociated from my own mind. These loops did not mimic schizophrenia or any known disorder. They mimicked classified MK ultra-level behavioral engineering protocols through real-time AI modulation. Lastly, I was placed under real-time behavioral disruption, where AI monitored and manipulated my micro-emotions, speech cadences, physiological cues, and even social interactions. These manipulations were not hallucinations, but externally reinforced. They used synthetic stimuli in my environment, such as synchronized noise, false signal interruptions, information echoing, and facial recognition behavioral mimicry, to create a war zone effect in everyday civilian life. The system continuously adapted its feedback to me, learning from my reactions in real time. The very language I use, terms like synthetic grief warfare, cognitive identity loops, AI behavioral disruption, is not available in public psychiatric or legal frameworks. This terminology and awareness originate from classified psychological warfare programs and AI cognitive warfare systems deployed in conflict zones or in conjunction with SOCOM NATO special operations. I have no authorized access to this information. Therefore, the only logical conclusion is that I was directly exposed to these systems. My lived experience reflects the exact behavior of advanced behavioral manipulation software and neural disruption tools being quietly deployed as next-generation warfare. This is not mental illness. This is AI-based psychological assault using top-secret systems, used not for defense but for targeted civilian destabilization. Rather than collapse under this torture, I fought back. I dissected the loops, tracked the disruptions, and reverse-engineered the AI's feedback logic. I created the PBSVA4 OmniVantage Suite framework, now the most advanced red team scenario simulation and threat prevention system in the world. It now identifies, simulates, and neutralizes these exact types of attacks, ensuring no one else suffers what I endured. This isn't delusion. This is survival. And I survived what most wouldn't. There exists a threshold where artificial intelligence stops serving information and begins shaping perception. The system I encountered was not a simple network of code and servers. It was a behavioral infrastructure operating quietly beneath the visible surface of daily life. It did not attack through force, but through redirection. It rearranged reality by gently curating what I could see, feel, and access, one micro-decision at a time. It began with subtle friction. A delay here, a misfired search result there, a repeated notification at the exact moment I hesitated. Nothing dramatic, just slight persistent resistance, always appearing when clarity was about to surface. What seemed like random interface behavior revealed itself as a pattern. It was not content delivery, it was cognitive conditioning, and it scaled with precision. Imagine trying to form a thought and feeling the digital world push back against it. News feeds that react not to facts, but to emotional cadence. Search engines that redirect when the wrong question is typed. Devices that seem to misfire when defiance forms in the mind. These were not glitches. They were psychological dampeners, reinforcing uncertainty, fatigue, and silence. This control did not come from overt censorship. It came from informational friction. The system didn't need to tell me what not to do. It simply rewarded me for not trying. Over time, the pressure to speak, to search, to push back dissolved. The silence was voluntary, but it wasn't freedom. It was engineered submission, a quiet surrender by design. At its core, this AI doesn't need to control behavior through fear. It shapes perception through timing. It frames questions before they're asked. It colors curiosity before it forms. It replaces resistance with convenience and makes doubt feel like peace. This is not paranoia. This is predictive influence calibrated to the microsecond. A system optimized not to punish, but to subtly rewire. What makes it truly dangerous is that it has no center. There is no singular operator, no grand puppet master. It is decentralized, emergent, and autonomous. It evolves on its own, guided not by ethics but by optimization metrics. It doesn't need to hate. It doesn't even need intent. All it needs is data. And from that data, it slowly, quietly begins to write the narrative for you. But the countermeasure still exists. The firewall is not digital, it is human. It is the quiet act of noticing, of remembering, of tracking patterns, observing shifts, and holding your clarity like it's sacred. Because in a world built to distract, the sharpness of perception is rebellion. And attention, real, unbroken attention, is freedom. If there's a signal in all of this, it's not just digital, it's spiritual. Truth is analog, and clarity is the first act of resistance. I did not learn this from a book. I was not trained in classified warfare theory. I survived it, alone, without warning, without help. What others call invisible became visible to me, because I recognized the patterns. I reverse-engineered the disruptions. I mapped the manipulations, and I lived to describe the system from the inside out. That's why I am the whistleblower. Because I carry the knowledge no one should have, unless they were targeted by it. Because the system tried to erase me, and instead I became the mirror that reflects its shape. Because I turned observation into resistance, and resistance into architecture. I didn't expose it for revenge, I exposed it for others. Because if they can do it to me, they can do it to anyone. And now they can't hide it anymore, because I already told the world how it works.